Right, so we've come back with a subcommittee. Just bear in mind that these are for the hearings on the 26th and 27th of March with deliberation on the 22nd of April. So I'll get Dave to read out the subcommittee.
Okie dokie. What we've done is we've come up with some possible groupings, and these will affect the tours, which what I'll do is once we cover off this, I'll cover the change that we will need to make to the terms of reference for this all to pan out. I will make sure that when the minutes are published, there will be a amended terms of reference included in the minutes for reference. So what we've come up with as a proposal is that the members shall be the chair of the Regional Transport Committee with the deputy chair as the alternate, Councillor O'Leary and Councillor Van Oosten as the alternate representing Hamilton City Council, Councillor Taylor with Deputy Mayor Bill Machin as the alternate representing Taupo South Waikato, Councillor Rodney Dowell and Jeanette Osborne for South Waikato, Mayor, I've missed one, sorry, Councillor Eugene Patterson with Councillor David White as the alternate for North Waikato, Mayor Len Salt and Councillor Philip Buckthorpe as the alternate for Hauraki Coromandel. And we've made a slight change, David Spears and Angus Hodgkin as his alternate, representing the transport agencies Waka Kotahi and Kiwi Rail as a non-voting advisor.
Also that the alternatives are welcome to come to the hearings and be part of the discussions, but the voting will be just down to that subcommittee. So there's, I think that's important. Angela's brought that up, so yeah. So is everyone happy with that? Oh, sorry, Mayor Lynn?
I am, thank you.
Yep. Just okay, so the resolution yeah.
Okay.
Do we get a name on 5A?
We can do it.
Please throw out the chair and deputy. We move that all in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yep.
Okay, so
I'll just cover off. What we've done to the terms of reference is these are on page 124 of the agenda. We have increased the number of members from 6 to 7, and we have edited 6B, instead of 4 elected members, there shall be 5. 6C, the member or their alternate representative of Waka Kotahi becomes representative of the transport agencies, being Waka Kotahi and Kiwi Rail. And also noting the change we made previously to the alternates not having to be from the same territorial authority as the members.
okay, so we can have a mover and a seconder for the resolution 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Thank you, Adrian, and second, Angela. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Did we have one, though? Yeah.
Yep, not a problem. Just to recap, I'll talk to Tash and we'll get those invites out. The dates for the hearings are the 26th and 27th of March. The dates of the deliberations are the 22nd of April, and the dates of the final of the meeting where Regional Council should adopt the LTP's 30th of May. I'll also note those dates in the minutes for you so that they're everywhere.
So we've pushed out the 30th of May from 24th, so 6 days. So is everyone happy with that? Okay. Thank you, Madeline, Kimberly, and Anu. Awesome work on this to you and your staff, and again, a Merry Christmas if you're not coming up and presenting to us, and a shorter Christmas I hear for you, Kimberly, with a new GSP coming out, GPS, yeah, so thank you very much.
Thank you all, and a wonderful Christmas break to you all too. Thank you.
Okay, the next item we've got is the regional public transport planning update. And we have Catherine, is it? Morning, Catherine.
Morning, Chair and Committee. So I'll kick off. I will take the report as read, but I think there are some exciting things to report and update you all on, so I will highlight some key things. The first of which is that the recommended route options for a new Eastern District service has been put forward. You'll see that in attachment 1, I believe it is. So that's a new two return trip service based in Thames connecting to Coromandel, Taurua, Whangamata, Paruawahi and Ngatea. So essentially this hybrid option, which was put forward as the recommended route option, allows us to test the demand for services to multiple regional towns using one vehicle, in addition to maintaining the Thames Connector service operating in Thames. The second is the recommendation for proposed service changes to the regional Eastern Connector. Was a slightly different process in the sense that through the work of this project, it focused quite a lot on vehicle utilization, cost efficiencies and optimization of the current service. So this option essentially maintains access to the regional towns with a small reduction in service to Matamata, but does have a significant cost saving of approximately $160,000 annually. We can go through that in a bit more details later, I'm sure. Other projects worth noting is the Waikato District Council services. We have the new Tamahiri and Matangi service launching in February, which is really exciting. The communications regarding that will go out sometime this month before Christmas. We have the service enhancements to the number 23 Raglan service, which is proposed to be implemented in April next year. Just an update with regards to the Ministry of Education's funding reduction to the Franklin Transport Network Group. Ourselves, the Ministry of Education and Waikato District Council will be having a community meeting at the Pocono Community Hall tomorrow evening, just to answer some questions and concerns from the community regarding that. And lastly, just to highlight that WRC staff has been actively involved in the SPTF consultations, and that staff have been providing technical input in response to that and will be doing so going forward. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Catherine. Len, did you? No.
Yes, I'd left that on. Sorry about that. Catherine, thank you. Just a couple of questions, if I may. We've had some discussions along the way. The Thames to Coromandel route, I think, is generally recognised as a #1 priority, and we've had a lot of community feedback about that. The Taurua Pauanui connection, the discussions that we've had have centred around, we're not convinced that there is a demand, particularly for the Pauanui side of it, but happy to let the trial run and let the numbers give us some indication. Whitianga is not on there at all in terms of town connections, but some of the discussion we've had, and I'm not sure who I spoke to, it might have been you, was around a Whitianga loop bus connecting the ferry to the Whitianga township, and I'm just not sure how that fits in this, or whether that is something that we as a council have to do on our own. So can you give me some commentary on that?
Sure.
And the other one, just while I'm throwing something into the mix, is the discussion around the Whitianga car ferry.
With regards to?
And you probably haven't been involved in that early part of it, but I think one of my councillors was involved in this discussion early on about a car ferry from Whitianga across to Ferry Landing. and whether there is any scope for looking at that. It's obviously not included in this, but is that something that can be looked at going forward?
Sure. I'll start with the first part for a local bus service, I guess, public transport service. That's not, I think our discussions at the time was that really the intention of this project and this particular service was to more at a larger district regional level, and a localized Whitianga service wasn't really what the project was aiming to address. That's certainly a project that can be looked at in the future through a different, project process. Not opposed to that at all. And the same with the ferry, outside the scope of this project, but happy to take further conversations about that offline.
Thank you. So just flagging now that is a couple of projects that we want to have a look at going forward, because there'll be some significant PKT benefits, especially on the Whitianga car ferry. Thank you.
Adrian.
Yeah, I'm just interested in the Matamata route, obviously, that's my patch of interest. And I look at it and think it takes an hour and 40 to go from Matamata and to get into Hamilton, when the quickest route is actually if the bus route started at Waharoa and went Matamata and then went on to Cambridge. I'm just wondering if there's any efficiencies to be gained, because we've already got a Morrinsville, Te Araha and Eastern route, so we're effectively duplicating a run into Hamilton via Morrinsville, and whether there's an opportunity to hook into South Waikato and Waipa, just looking strategically for the future, because obviously taking out the middle of the day run means that people that are going over for the morning will have to, like the timing of the buses isn't ideal. The purpose, I'm still fascinated by who is actually using the buses and is it doing what it was intended to do strategically. So I'm sort of quite challenged by that whole dynamic, because somebody has to pay and it's regional council rates, so everyone's going to see. So, there's going to be targeted rates on people. So we have to really make sure that whatever we start or initiate, that we have a robust, have some really good data to support it, because communities, it's fine for us sitting around here saying we want this and we want that, but somebody's got to pay. And in these times, doesn't bother me too much if there's a route change, but I think going forward, there might be some opportunities for efficiency with a meet point at Cambridge, because I don't know that the buses are full. I'll just throw that out there strategically. That's okay, but yeah, but we'll just have to go with what you've got there at the moment. Thank you. And you've had that conversation with us around the bus times. So
yeah, I think it might be worth just adding a bit of commentary on that. I hear what you're saying about the duplication of the service between Morrinsville and Hamilton. Essentially, the Matamata service was put forward as an extension of that service of the Morrinsville Eastern Connector to be able to provide an additional Hamilton to Morrinsville peak time service. So there was that added benefit of going to Matamata through Morrinsville. The patronage between Morrinsville to Matamata is not that high, especially during that middle peak, midday service. So most people using that bus do get off at Morrinsville. So I hear what you mean in terms of connecting to Matamata via a different route. But that would be a new service, because this essentially assists Morrinsville with their demand. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, Len.
Sorry, can I just circle back? And I don't think I explained this very well. I just want to pick up on the fact that Whitianga is missing from there, and what's going to happen as soon as this goes out and the trial starts. Our communities are going to be saying, well, you're going to Pauanui, nobody will use it, because the people of Pauanui it's mostly holiday homes and they're mostly empty most of the time, and they're pretty wealthy people anyway, so they won't use it. The people of Whitianga, who are a lot of retired people who want to go to Thames for the hospital or the medical or Pack and Save or whatever, they will use it, but Whitianga is not on there. So I'm flagging right now that that's going to be the feedback from our communities to say, why are you going to Pauanui and not Whitianga? And we need to be prepared for an answer to that.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, and I will also just elaborate. We did look at Whitianga. There are some operational constraints with getting there and back to do return trips during the day in terms of how long the trip takes, driver hours, what they legally are and aren't required to do, etc. So there was, it did get workshopped going there. So perhaps I'll share with you the outcomes of that and why it wasn't chosen, so we can just be a bit more informed.
Thank you. The good news is that we've built a $48 million, $43 million bridge to help that. So if your workshopping was before that, while that road was closed, then maybe that needs to be revisited. But so I would appreciate having that, the details of that. That'll help for our messaging with the communities if the question gets asked, and I'm sure it will be. Thank you.
Thanks, Len. Okay, if there's no other, oh yeah, sorry, Philip.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment, really, Catherine. Just to say thank you very much. We really appreciated that that conversation we had. I think it was nearly a couple of months ago now. But yeah, really happy to see those amendments put into the LTP. Cheers.
Okay, we've got a resolution on the table there that the report regional public transport planning update be received. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you. Moved by Philip and second by Rodney. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to everyone.
Okay, the next item we've got is the regional public transport operations and performance monitoring. We've got Sarah. Morning, Sarah. How are you? Good. Oh, probably for the online people though.
Hi, well, I'm the stand-in this week for Trudy, but I would like to take the report as read and just move on to any questions.
Very good, Sarah. I like that. They're all diligent councillors here and they would have read it all in theirs. So any discussions for Sarah? No, Sarah.
Oh, just a
gosh.
question.
Oh, yeah, Angela.
Yes.
Just a question, in terms of, certainly happens in the city, I'm not too sure out in the region, in terms of the fact that we are exceeding combined patronage figures all over the place and on some of the regional routes, is the regional council looking at doing any comms program around that? Because if people see it being used and hear it being popular, they might go, oh, actually, I might just check that out. Because I'm sick and tired of the rhetoric. Oh, there's only one person on the bus. So all the buses that I see when I go around have got people on them. So I don't, it's a bit like the cyclist things. Oh, there's no cyclists on the road. I see them everywhere. Get them away.
The answer to that is probably we have a regular sort of comms cycle around some of those services. Recently, we've been putting a lot of effort into the comms for the Meteor.
Yeah,
But actually the Comet's doing really well too. And so is the Orbiter. So all of our main frequent services are doing exceptionally well at the moment, as are some of the interregionals too. So yeah, we can definitely take that feedback back to the comms team and say, actually, can we be a bit more celebratory and outline the successes of these services, because they are doing very well.
Success does build success. Thank you, Claire. That's right. Yeah, it would be really great to be able to do that. And there used to be something that Mayor Paula mentioned the other day that Regional Council used to do many years ago, like invite media on to ride with the passengers or something. There was a particular name for it, but it was a comms exercise, and it was quite cool. Get to know those people that actually ride PT and their stories. Drag Stephen Ward on, he'd love it. Is he still here? Thanks.
Angela.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Sarah and Catherine, for your work on this. Just probably three things. Yeah, I note Te Whatu Ora concession.
Yeah.
I do talk to a lot of people out there, and there's not much knowledge about this. So I'm wondering if we could go a bit harder on the comms on that, because it's a fantastic concession, which is a win-win for their parking issues up at the hospital, for staff and visitors alike. Next one would be the Taupua EV launch.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, great to see that that's the first EV bus in our region. Yeah, so keen to hear your thoughts on that, Chair, in a minute. And then lastly, community transport. If we recall, a few meetings ago, we put the resolution from the September meeting to WRC to increase that community transport fund. So that is now being considered as part of our LTP deliberations. So it would be fantastic to see submissions from our rural councils towards that point to our LTP process. That would really help with our decision making and evidence base around the table about how it is impacting every rural community in the Waikato. And yeah, it is a real people focused policy, and we'd love to have the support of the wider region for that one, please.
Thanks,
Thank
Angela.
you.
Yeah, just to endorse, myself and Kevin was at the launch for the electric bus, the first electric bus in the Waikato region. I think there's another 9 being ordered, 2 double deckers and 7 others. So Kevin, if you want to just say something on that, it was a well received and fantastic launch, cool looking bus. So yeah.
Yeah, it was, and thanks to the staff who came down for that. The owner of the company was there, who was an old family friend of the mayor, Roots and Dannyberg, apparently, on both sides of the family. But it was great, and I've seen it around town already with patronage, actually people on it, which is helpful. No, it's going well as far as I'm aware. So a good event.
Thanks, Sarah. So we've got a sorry, yes. Jenny.
Just wanted to ask about the Tikawiti service and the Tokoroa service. And also, you know, there is a health bus that comes up from Tamaranui. I realise that's interregional, but just wondered if you had any information on the patronage for those 2 trials and the health bus.
Tokoroa is doing really well. And so is Tikawiti. In Appendix A, you can see how they've built up over the quarters.
I couldn't find it on Appendix A. I did look.
Oh, it's down the
Sorry.
bottom, South Waikato Unit 7, Tokoroa.
Okay, yep.
And then Tikawiti. Oh, you're right. I can't see Tikawiti in there.
Wasn't just
It's
me
on the
being
next
blind.
page.
I know that.
On the next page, I think.
Yes, Sarah, I had a meeting with the Mayor John down there at Tikawiti, and he said that it's really, really well received, that one that goes from Tikawiti, Otronga to Hamilton. So I'd say the patrons on that will be real good, because a lot of uni students go on it and a lot of elderly as well.
Be good to see some numbers.
Yep.
Yeah, both of those services are doing really well, from what I can gather. In fact, all of the interregionals and the frequent services in Hamilton are doing really, really well and getting back up to where they were pre all the disruption of COVID and beyond in some cases. So the Cambridge services have exceeded where they were pre-COVID. The other Hamilton services are probably being affected still by their frequencies. So February, there's a timetable change for those, but I'll definitely make sure I'll get the numbers for Tikawiti for you, Councillor.
Okay, Philip.
Thank you, Chair. Just regarding the comments on the increased patronage, and I don't want to be the bad cop, but it'll be interesting to see if those figures in the future stay up, seeing as the cost of fuel is decreasing. So that'll be a real good measure. And regarding the community transport fund, yes, we at Karakia will make sure we put in a submission, because it's the outlying regions that benefit most from that.
Good point. Okay, if there's no other discussion, we've got a resolution that the Regional Public Transport Operations and Performance Monitoring Report be received. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Claire. Moved, and second, Eugene. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is EV charging on council land, and we've got Julie. Welcome back, Julie.
Morning again, thank you, and I'll take a leaf out of Sarah's book.
I'll just get you, because you've got a beautiful soft voice, just to speak a bit closer. Yeah.
Good morning, and thank you again for the introduction, and I'll take a leaf out of Sarah's book and take the report as read. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to receive them.
Any questions from the committee? Yep, Angela.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. It's really pleasing to see how far this work has gone. When we started last triennium, to where it's got to now. So thank you to you and your team for that. Just wondering, are the chargers that are being installed, are they all fast chargers, or are they what's the ratio between fast and slow that are being put in?
Sorry, councillor, I don't know the answer to that. I know that there are not enough of either. I suspect that the slower ones are in destination locations like shopping malls and supermarkets, and the faster ones will be on the highways and, you know, for that journey charging. Now I've lost my train of thought. I can't remember what I was going to say. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure of the mix. I think the main thing to remember is that this is like that's what I was going to say, is that this project is focused on council land and not the public charges at supermarkets and shopping malls. So I guess you could think of it as being a transition between having virtually or a very low number of them across the region and indeed nationally. It's a transition to them being much more commercialised, I guess, and available everywhere, probably more in petrol stations and things like that, because there just aren't enough of them. So if we think of it as being, this is what can councils do now to improve access to the chargers, from now until the time in which we get to a tipping point where they're everywhere and much more easily accessed. That's a good thing to note.
Yeah, thank you. And just on that, I note that our visitor car parking here does not have any EV charging. Is there any thought or direction going into changing that for those of our visitors who do have a EV or a hybrid?
Thanks for the question. I know that very early on in our LTP process, there was discussion around having them not only here, but at our outlying regional offices. I'm not quite sure where we've got to with that discussion.
Okay, thank you. And just wondering where this fits in the nationwide conversation around EV chargers. Just thinking of our location within the North Island and interregional connectivity and that ability to be able to charge along the way.
Yeah. So my understanding is that New Zealand Transport Agency has had their goal is to have them at every 75 kilometres along state highways. But you might notice, and I'm not sure how complete that project is, you might notice on the map in the report that there are several big gaps in our region. Phase 2 of the project, so phase 1 has been all about getting the ideas down and providing a toolkit for the councils to use, the council staff to use to help assess applications as they come through, because there's not really much assistance there if you haven't done it before. Phase 2 of the project is CoLab is looking at having a regional approach to market. So where they would get what every council would want to do if they want to be involved, and then go out to market with a process that could then be of benefit to all the councils in the region, particularly the smaller ones where they might not have the staff to work on these sorts of projects independently. that's another point to highlight in the report, is that at some point, whether you go down the collab route or go it alone, you'll need to commit some staff resource to being able to assess these things and work out what your policy is around it, because it's such a huge topic that you've even got to think about. So what do you do about cars that park, that are ICE cars, internal combustion engines, compared to EVs? What are the parking infringements? How do you monitor that? How many car parks might you take away from traditionally fueled cars to all sorts of things? What are the regulations? What are you allowed to do? What are you not allowed to do? As well as trying to leverage the best outcome for your community. So there'd be communities in the region that would could certainly benefit from having economic rejuvenation by people stopping on their journey and spending money there at a local cafe, etc. So interregionally, I've been to a workshop with CoLab. There are some councils outside of our region that are interested in that, but that belong to CoLab and that are interested in participating in this work as well.
Yeah, no, thank you for the work that you are doing, and yeah, you're sort of leading the way as well. Has there been much interest from government agencies over the work that you are doing? I know I've had a few conversations,
Yes.
the likes of Te Pūkenga, other people, just to sort of, you've done the groundwork. Yeah. Are we going about sharing what we've learned?
Yes, so right from the start, we've had Waka Kotahi, New Zealand Transport Agency, involved, supporting the work as well as providing information and keeping us in the loop about what's happening at central government level. I've recently also had more conversations with Rick Barber from the Hamilton office and Harry Wilson, who is now working for ECA, about how we can work together to benefit the region. So it is, I wouldn't say innovative, but we're one of the first regions to be doing this work where we're looking at a consistent approach across the region. And I guess I could point out that in the beginning it started because councils were being approached by EV charging providers and the staff didn't always know what to do, how to assess it, what was important to think about and what wasn't. So we came together as a collective group to work out this toolkit of resources. So that's available to any council staff member in any part of the region. They only need to contact us. Plus we have the guidelines on the website that we anticipate that staff will be referring providers to, so they can see that they're going to get the same answer, hopefully, from every council in the region.
Yeah, and just lastly, what are the benefits to, say, those more remote communities to have these sorts of charges, and given that a car might take 20 to 40 minutes to fast charge, to that local economy?
If I think about where I live locally, I live near to Karakia. So there's a charger there at the Foursquare, which I think is owned by the Foursquare owners, but it makes people stop there. It's on a state highway. It's a small village. It benefits from people stopping for more than the 5 minutes that they do at a petrol station. So there's the economic input into a local economy. There's also good safety reasons to be stopping every hour or two on your journey to wherever you're going. I would note that places like Kawhia don't have a charger at all. So unless you're a batch owner there with your own charger, people won't necessarily drive there. You know, the topography is such that you'll use a lot of charge getting there, and then getting back might be more of an issue. Obviously, technology is changing and the batteries are having more capability to go for further, but those are the sorts of things that we would want the staff to look at, is that what are the benefits beyond just the traveller or the person getting there. Same, we have similar issues with Coromandel that only has 5 chargers in total on the peninsula. So that's where there are holiday destinations. yes, you definitely need them there, but we're also looking for the little places that might benefit from people stopping that they might not otherwise have stopped at.
Jenny,
Just repeating my question from earlier, asking what involvement the Lines Company have had in this. And noting that in our region, it was actually our Lines Company that was spearheading this by getting funding from ECA and putting charges in tourism spots. It's my first question.
Yes, so I'll respond to that now. So until now, we haven't necessarily negotiated or talked to the lines companies because we've just been getting the policy framework right, but absolutely acknowledging and understanding that that will be a very big issue in some areas. I think depending on how the project goes as to whether councils choose to go down the collab route, which is the regional collaboration continuing into the next phase, or if a council decides to go on its own to work out how they're going to manage it, that is where definitely the lines companies will need to be involved. And CoLab has already indicated that they would be discussing everything with lines companies, and that would probably have to be part of any contracts that are drawn up, that you can't just say, well, we want one here, but then it's not backed up by the energy supply to the site.
Perhaps we could have an offline conversation. I sit as a trustee on the Waitoma Energy Customer Services Trust, which is the shareholder of the Lines Company, and this has been a topic of conversation for our energy trust for some years. It's also of great concern to the Lines companies. So there are parallel conversations going on. So
Sure.
we meet
Yeah.
afterwards and just have a
Yes,
conversation.
thank you. And sorry, and just on that note, there's also it's a combination of the digital technology as well, because they're all run digitally, and you need to use swipe cards and fobs and all that. So it's got to be a combination of the transport network and the location where you're siting it, the energy supply and the digital communication. They've all got to come together to make it work.
The other comment was, there was a question about road user charges, and currently EVs don't have any road user charges. They don't contribute at all. But it's proposed that from March 24, now that EVs have hit 2% of cars, that there will be RUCs in a similar way that diesel vehicles have to.
Yes.
And my third comment was just a note about you mentioned Karakia not having an EV charger, and there's a big gap on the map there to Te Waitere and Maricopa, but also noting that there is no petrol or fuel supplies, obviously in Karakia, but not. There are warning signs for that part of the district saying no fuel for 100 and something kilometres. So just noting that.
thanks, Jeanette. Kevin?
More way of a comment. Thank you for the item. Appreciated. I can confirm the economics of it. You spend more on coffee and cake than you do on electricity, having owned an EV for about 4 years. Cheap to gas up, but not so cheap when you wander down the road. And I note the gap on the map here, and people we speak to, because for those that have an electric car, when you go to plug in, it is a community and you get chatting with people who are there, and that gap on the map in the central North Island is well known and a frustration to a lot of people. So with that, and the other comment I'd make is around talking about pressure on different councils to put these in. We were subjected to that and lost, I think it's 3 parking spaces at the back of fast food restaurants in the CBD in Taupo. And that caused a significant amount of conversation around the council table before that went in back and forth, because immediately across the road was an EV retailer of vehicles who had his own charging station there, private one. So it's having this kind of policy is actually really good. So thank you.
Because there also is private developers, because you say that, but then there's also the new Countdown that's opened up in the new place they've got. John Penny's put an EV there, and there's also the new development in other parts of the our district that are private developers are putting EV chargers in as well.
Yeah, there are a lot, but I suspect there will be a point at which the lines company will have to be leading the conversation, because capacity on the network, once, I mean, 2% is fine, you get to 5 or 6 or 10%. And if half of them plug in at the same time, no one's going to be watching TV or boiling their jug at the same time.
Okay, Len?
Real quick, thanks, Julie. Just a bit of an update on Coromandel. Yes, we've only got 5 there. I think ChargeNet are putting one in at Tairua, but Tesla approached me a couple of months ago and said they want to put another 30 across the district, which they're working on at the moment. So this policy will be, I think, extraordinarily helpful to our council working through with Tesla and other providers to make sure that we've got everything lined up, because there wasn't anything. So thank you for that. The Coromandel is riddled with Teslas, but a lot of them charge overnight. They're there for the holiday home and they plug in. So it's trickle charge. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the load on the lines, but at the moment, I'm not seeing it causing too many problems because a lot of them are overnight slow charging. So thank you.
Adrian?
Yeah, I've got a couple of challenges here, and I think given that there are businesses that are interested in providing these, I sort of feel councils don't run petrol stations. So I sort of feel I'm a little bit benign to the concept of councils actually must provide. Maybe there's an opportunity, so I'm a little bit, neutral on it. Also bearing in mind that electricity demand is a thing in this community. And if you remember, those of us that were at a zone meeting a few months ago, we had the Infrastructure Commission speaking. And when you've got your demand and variable pricing, that variable pricing is really important because we'd need more electricity generation if we were all to plug in the high demand time. So got to be really strategic here on how many Tesla want to put around the Coromandel Peninsula, because guess what? You can have enough gas down those lines to gas up your car. And that's, there's a bigger picture here. So there's a few red flags, all right, in the lower level, but once you start getting more, is what does that mean? So just that's a red flag for me.
Okay, thanks. Adrian, any other discussions on this subject? If not, we've got a resolution. We have that report of the EV charging in council land be received. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you. Len has moved and second Kevin. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you, Joey.
Thank you.
Okay, the last item of the day is Waka Kotahi. David.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to take Sarah's approach if you like. Are there any questions? I do have a PowerPoint. What I'll do is I'll whip through that quickly. There are some reasonably important things on there to cover, but I'll try and do that as quickly as possible, because I know there will be questions, but also in view of time. So who's controlling the? I'll just give a nod, Dave, so you can go to the next 2. Start national updates. Right, so NLTP development feels a bit redundant given the conversation we've just had. But yeah, I guess just to reiterate, GPS process underway at the moment. It's being fast-tracked as quickly as possible. It is a complete rewrite. Minister's asked for a 20-page version. And as I understand, that's what's been given to him, which still sounds like quite a big document, but it's a substantial reduction on previous ones. And the final GPS will come into effect on 1 July. We're still aiming for that, but we'll have a draft, I suspect, much earlier than that in the new year, especially the pace with which this government are tracking along. There's probably not much else to tell you there, to be honest. You've seen the detail of the ship and things in the workshops. So next slide, Dave. If you've got questions as we go, it's probably better to ask them because there's quite a bit to cover here. Safety cameras. We've talked about safety cameras before. Just heads up, we have had a trial of safety cameras on State Highway 2 from at Mangatawhiri on that section just recently. What that demonstrated is there is definitely a need for point-to-point cameras along that piece of network. It's 90 kilometres an hour. The level of speeding was alarmingly high. So very good odds that will become a permanent position once the safety cameras are properly deployed. We have got some more sites coming in the top 27 in this region, only one, and that's Wairaki Road. So heads up for you, Kevin, slow down. So that will go, there'll be a temporary deployment and then that will go permanent. Mid next year, the permanent sites will start ticketing. So that'll be interesting. There'll be a really big public communication and public push before that happens. We've stood up quite a big, I hesitate to say this at the moment, but we've stood up quite a big comms team around this, just because social license is quite important in this context. Some people kind of take the approach that, well, if you're speeding, you should get a ticket, and that's just how it is. Suck it up. But actually, this is a big change for New Zealand, so it will be comms quite a lot, and we will get more sites in this region. But for now, in the top 27, Wairaki Road, and then the Mangatawhiri stretch are the two in this part of the region that have been prioritised. They'll be signposted. They'll be, it'll be the classic kind of if you get caught by one of these things, we'll fool you. Surprisingly, the trial ones were signposted. We had media, and still it was amazing how many people got caught, and frightening how quickly some of them were going. So yeah, watch the space. I'll update you as that comes. There's issues in other parts of the country where there isn't political support for some of the sites. I'm pretty comfortable that at the moment, at least in this region, we're pretty comfortable. And Kevin's going to tell me Wairaki's not supported.
No, that's fine because it's a tourist road and there's lots of cyclists there.
Yeah.
My only question would be, and I'm not playing devil's advocate, but if these sites have so much in terms of the quantum of speeding, in terms of the self-explaining roads principles, what does that tell us about the speed environment that people naturally are going that fast? So is there some other engineering things or some other environmental things that should be looked at? Because if the bulk of people are going at whatever speed, that's what they're being invited to do, unless it's just suddenly they appear on this bit of road and they all break the law.
So good observation. And actually, in conjunction with those trials, the engineering, etc., of the roads is being looked at. So one of the things I like about this program is it's quite holistic. So it's not just saying we're focusing on cameras. It's actually saying, well, let's look at the environment, which is why those environments are being chosen to see what treatment. And it might prove that Pocono stretch, for example, Pocono to Mangatawhiri is actually something that even the point-to-point cameras don't impact in the long run. But it's part of the information gathering process.
Will they be seatbelt ones and phone cameras as well? Or?
Technology's there to do that, but initially no. And partly that's because whilst the technology's there to do that same technology has some challenges around private safety. So the stuff that can detect whether you've got a seatbelt on is also the same thing. That's facial recognition. It's the same thing. So we're just going through the process of what software we turn on and off at the moment. But initially, they're just going to focus on speed. The other challenge with that is there's only so much processing capacity, right? And so, if you turn on seatbelts and you turn on facial recognition, or no, not facial recognition. Again, I said that. If you turn on seatbelts and you turn on road user charges up to date and warrant of fitnesses, all of which is possible, that the sheer amount of data and processing is just kind of overwhelming. So what we're doing is we're saying, well, what's the priority? The priority is speed. So let's focus on speed in these places.
Will there be comms on like that you can lose your license? A lot of people think you can't lose your license with speed cameras, but you can, in fact.
They'll be all part of the comms package. There'll also be comms if we introduce, for example, as they did in Auckland, the red light camera, and they upgraded those so that you could see cell phone use, for example. If we were going to do that at sites where cell phone use was an issue, then we would do really good comms. Like I say, it's got a really substantial comms team because we know that in this case it's It's as much about social license as it is about the actual punitive side of things.
Excuse me, David, do the speed cameras also charge at the bottom end of the spectrum too? Because there seems to be a lot more people driving slowly today and causing just as much issue. So
I don't know.
Does it
I actually
cover
don't know
that?
that answer. I know that it is an offence to drive so slowly that you cause a risk to other motorists, but I don't. Kevin knows the rule. I don't know whether that's going to be.
No, they
something
don't.
with
But
these.
it's been a few years, but I used to run the program in police some years ago, and no, they don't do that. They're not set on irritation mode.
There you go. There's an answer. But this will be this will be a moving feast as the cameras roll out and they become more normalised. There are some options to have fixed cameras and also mobile cameras on trailers, for example, that will just be pulled up on the side of the road and parked there for a few days. So that will all roll out over time, but I'll just keep you informed as sites get chosen.
Exactly.
We've had that conversation already.
Yeah.
If I may, David, is there an opportunity here with the push to go from Waka Kotahi to NZTA and all that goodwill that Waka Kotahi have built up with the early opening of 25A to separate yourself out so that this is the good stuff is Waka Kotahi and all this stuff is NZTA? Is there a goodwill opportunity there?
You put me in a difficult position. I'll just say no comment, shall I?
Public meeting.
Remember, you're live, David.
Yeah. Next slide, please. No, I think it's pretty well known that we are Waka Kotahi New Zealand Transport Agency or New Zealand Transport Agency Waka Kotahi, I don't think. Yeah. Quick safety program update. So the interim speed management process is continuing. That has got quite a few sites included in it in our region, including Whānau 25A. And that's progressing. We'll see how that progresses post our new minister giving us some more direction around that space. Importantly for you guys all, there is a new right car video, which is sort of aimed at, keeping, you can buy a 5-star car in every price bracket, et cetera. The reason that's just come out is that the vehicle classifications have just been updated again. So they get updated all the time and you end up in a situation where, I've got a vehicle that 4 years ago was 5-star and is now 3-star. But that's simply because the technology is moving so quickly. Doesn't mean the car's any less safe. It just means relatively you could have a much safer car if you wanted to. So the important thing in there is that it highlights that availability of really safe cars in every price bracket, because that's a common thing that people say, oh, well, I can't afford I can't afford a Tesla, or I can't afford a Range Rover. So, I have to buy a cheap car that's not as safe. Well, actually, there are in every price bracket from $5,000 up. And we've done some work with ACC around motorcycling. Again, that happens in September, but actually there's a big push over the summer, because that's when all the folks get on their bikes and off they go, riding around the country. And just sort of the aim of that is to ensure that people are ride ready. One of the challenges, and again, Kevin will probably know more about this than I do, but one of the challenges is the sort of middle-aged men that get a big bike. They rode when they were in their 30s. Now they're in their late 50s and they think, oh yeah, here we go, Mr. Chair. And now they think, hey, it'd be great to get back on a bike, and they get a big Harley, and next minute.
So just so we're clear, no to the Harley, and some of us never got off the bikes.
You know what I mean, though. So there is a bit of a push around that. We're doing a push over the summer, and your help would be greatly appreciated whenever you get the chance. Just road worker safety, road worker respect. After those horrible incidents we had, with people being shot at and things being thrown at them, there is still a bit of that. It has died down, but we just want to push over the summer. It's going to be a very busy summer. There are going to be a lot of road cones and a lot of disruptions. That's actually a good thing, just breathe, and actually the guy or the girl that's holding the road sign is not the decision maker. They didn't put you there. So, just give them a break. So we're pushing that pretty hard. We're also pushing it with the companies that do traffic management to say, try and put on as friendly a face as you can and do, so yeah, just be aware of that. Next slide, Dave.
Just to add to that, it's really sad though that people are so impatient because it's the same with power cuts. When power cuts are done to do maintenance, people are equally as angry online as they are but because you've got people, you get hit it that much harder. But
And I think that the key thing, the thing for me is the thing for us, if you're driving over the holidays, people in New Zealand, people drive large distances. You are likely to come across multiple roadwork sites, and that's the problem. It's not just going to be one. 40 minutes down the road, you're going to hit another one, and then 40. And if you're going to Napier, well, you're going to hit a few. So,
just on that, David, like for our industry or the trucking industry, the actual road closures sometimes work just as well. Like a full route, you first get stuck and get it over and done within a couple of days or whatever.
Yeah. And so you'll see
we
that
can
happening.
plan that. The problems we always have is, especially in the summer with a load of stock on, you pull up, someone's got to sit there for 2 hours, like, if you kind of know, don't go there. I mean, obviously your team does that nowadays anyway quite often.
Yeah, we're doing more of it. And I mean, recently I know we closed State Highway 1 at Wairaki and put a diversion in place because we could get the works done in 3 days instead of 3 weeks. It was just made sense. Big disruption, but much, much less. And like you say, you people could plan around it. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Next slide, Dave. State highway maintenance and operations and renewals is sort of what we were talking about. We have proposed in the State Highway Improvement Plan a very significant increase in the amount of renewals work. And over the period of 24 to 27, one of the issues we've got is capacity in the system to do the amount of work that's required. So the next sort of 3 years is really about stopping the asset getting worse and getting it back to a condition or a stable condition. And then the next tranche is putting in the renewals and improvements. Because if we tried to sort of stick it all down the pipeline at the moment, we just don't have the capacity. We'll just end up choking on the amount of work that we've got. So yes, there's a very significant investment in the State Highway Improvement Plan around maintenance and operations. Much of it will come on in the 27-30 kind of timeframe, the post 24-27, because for the next 3 years, it'll be about building up and stabilizing. And our contractors and things are all saying to us that's the way to go because we just don't have the capacity at the moment to manage the work plan that you're talking about, even though we all agree it's absolutely necessary. So in 24-27, 4.4 billion is of worth of investment is programmed, obviously subject to the GPS, but it's a pretty substantial program of works. So hence all the road cones. Next slide, Dave. Again, government's identified some strategic projects that it wants us to push forward with very strongly. We're still waiting on kind of the really clear instructions for that. But in the Waikato, it's State Highway 1, Cambridge to Piededi, and we talked about that a little bit this morning in the workshop. That may well be something that doesn't sit in the NLTF, but actually sits outside that as a government priority. We don't know yet. We're still waiting on guidance. It's one of those things that happens every triennium. You get a new minister and a new GPS, and you have to wait a little bit. Next slide, Dave. Bridge replacements.
Just before you do that, the other project is the Southern Links, David. And is that something that may also take a different funding route?
I truthfully, I don't know. It is something that we've highlighted in the SHIP, obviously, and what we've done in the SHIP consistent with the form and function reviews. We've said if this were to be built, we think it should be staged, simply because of the logistics of doing the entire TI thing in one is huge. And if it were to be staged, then State Highway 21 is the priority and the replacement of Narrows Bridge. Whether that is something that lands with the minister and government as a take it out of the NLTF and fund it through a separate mechanism, I have literally no insight at the moment. But it does lend itself to that conversation, whether it lands that way or not. Can't tell you. Just quickly, bridge replacements. You'll see State Highway 25 is quite heavily represented here. That's simply because we've got quite a few. There's a lot of old single lane coming to the end of their life bridges on State Highway 25. So Pepe Stream, obviously we've talked about that before. That's very much at the point of progressing to construction. Ramarama Stream Bridge and Coromandel Boundary Creek Bridge, that's the one I referred to earlier, where you've got the single, effectively got a double lane bridge that's down to one lane because of some challenges with extending its life a little bit. Those are all on the program for replacement, and State Highway 27, Hinekawa Stream Bridge in Hauraki. So they are classed as maintenance, and will be done as maintenance in the next period of NLTP. Next slide, Dave. So we're continuing with the freight system. You'll be pleased to know, Rodney, this has not taken a back step. In fact, if anything, this is getting an injection of priority. And this is really about route reliability for freight. So those are the focus areas spelled out there. Cambridge to Prairie, obviously, Prairie to Tauriko, so that's 29. Waikato Expressway to State Highway 3, so that's 21, State Highway 21, which is the Southern Links question. 1C, State Highway 3 to State Highway 23, again, that's pretty obvious why we're focusing on that. And Taupo to Desert Road, State Highway 1, so that's the bigger picture that includes Bully Point as a bypass. And that's why that's in there as a program business case for that whole corridor, not focused on we need to bypass Bully Point, but actually we need to have a look at that whole corridor. And $5.4 million set aside to do the program business case for that over the next 3 years. The focus there is obviously resilience and maintenance, but really they all require quite large capital investments. So, it'll be a work in progress, but it is getting a push along. Speaking of increasing resilience, Dave, next slide. We've done a lot of work in this space. Obviously, a lot of this is reactionary. Waikato is really actually a really vulnerable region to impacts of storms and slips. And as we've all seen, that picture there, that's State Highway 23 to Raglan. That's what it looked like when we started work. It's a pretty amazing piece of work, actually, the way it looks now. But on the list is there of what we've already done. So 25A, Tapu to Corriglen, open in not very long, 20th of December. Tapu Corriglen's open, 25A will be open on the 20th. We're still progressing one State Highway 1 Cambridge to Prairie as a resilience project. Again, the business case also talks about that from a safety point of view and also from an economic point of view. So not just resilience, but actually the economic benefit of it. And yeah, actually I've already talked about those. Piariri to Waioru, Taupo Desert Road, to Portaporu State Highway 1, we're working on that already. And the business case for Taupo North to Piariri. So that's mostly going to be about safety. Next slide. Reducing emissions. So we've had some commentary about this already today. Public transport use is increasing actually across the board. So it's not just a Waikato thing, which is really cool. We are seeing private vehicle use still remaining really, really high though, and that is definitely the case in the Waikato. We're still right up there in terms of private vehicle use and still right up there in terms of short journeys, which is quite significant for us if we're going to target, to your point, Claire, actually what can we do to minimise carbon emissions? It's those short journeys. and we've got a real challenge with that in the Waikato. I think the upswing in those really key routes, public transport routes, will help, but actually we have a challenge in measuring what that means as well in terms of carbon reduction. You know, VKTs is a proxy, vehicle kilometres travelled, but it doesn't, it's not very accurate. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenge there. We've got an existing joint transport program working through Future Proof with Hamilton, etc. You will know that we're keeping on pushing with that, and you've seen the priorities in the RLTP. I think we've got a really good plan. I actually am really encouraged by it. So, notwithstanding that, government have indicated some preferences around these kind of programs. What our minister has said publicly is where there is a economic benefit, a congestion benefit, then this stuff makes sense. And so, you know, we will still see support for these kind of programs. It will just be that the I guess the nuance and the purpose of them might shift a little bit. Next slide, Dave. Just to highlight, I guess, we are forecasting in this region a significant growth, and we all know that, but by 2048, 115,000 extra people, most of which is in Hamilton and around Hamilton. And so, again, that's kind of why I'm quite heartened by the public transport and the transport investment in this RLTP, because it is focused, I think, in the right place, given those growth pressures, and then our investment in terms of infrastructure being focused around those key growth areas is critical. Dave, perhaps skip through to the State Highway activities slide. Just the map is as useful as anything. It just gives you a highlight of where the programmed investment is over the next year and 3 years, and you can see where it's concentrated quite significantly. And that list sets out for you the top 7, which are the committed activities. So we're already underway. And then the proposed investment activities, State Highway 21, to your point, Maxine, as part of Southern Links, Bully Point's in there, Piri to Taupo, all those ones I've talked about, State Highway 1B, Telephone Road. And those are all reflected in the SHIP and in the prioritisation. Next one, Dave. These are the significant infrastructure activities. So these are the real big spends on infrastructure. And again, you can see the spread. They're all the big blue dots are speed and infrastructure. The green dots are other improvements. So that tends to be resurfacing, etc. And then the big orange dots are the really big investments. So you can see State Highway 129 in there. State Highway 1 Cambridge to PDD. That's the really big play for us in this region. Dave, next 2 slides. Bit of Waikato. Key thing take away from here, our program for this coming 23-24 season, 500 lane kilometres of renewals and maintenance and operations. So yeah, don't spend your time counting road cones because you'll run out of fingers real quick. We've got 20% of the national renewal program, which is so it's huge. Most of that is going to be focused on State Highway 21, State Highway 1. And Rodney, you'll be pleased to see Wairaki, we're talking about just closures, so and diversions, rather, and get it done, get it out, and then, you know, the likes of yourself and the freight companies can program around that. Yeah. Big program between now and March, really. 500 lane kilometres is huge for any region. Next slide. Dave, just by way of an update, State Highway 129, I've talked about this a little bit today already. We've awarded the contract. The site's going to be handed over to the contractor this week. They'll just do site establishment, etc. before Christmas. Post-Christmas, they'll start kicking into some establishment around topsoil removal and things like that, establishing their drainage, stormwater management, and then major works will probably be February, March, April. I think there's a blessing this week. Sorry, I'm confused about what, I think there's a blessing for the site this week. Might be on the 15th. And yeah, that'll kick off in earnest. So as you drive past, it'll be, if you're turning left to go to Tauranga off State Highway 1, it's on that inside left corner. It'll be quite visible once they get going. And it's quite close. It's actually quite close to the corner. And as I say, it's a very large piece of construction. So yeah, you'll be able to watch it materialise. Next slide. Already talked about this. 25A, job done. It's looking amazing. There will still be some work required on it. So we're going to set the speed limit at 80 kilometres an hour. It'll be controlled to 50 for the next little while because there's a bit of finishing work and stuff. But the last thing we wanted to do was keep it closed so we could titivate it. We just want to get it open and then we'll just work around the traffic as best we can. We might have to do some night closures, but again, we won't do those until after the peak holiday season. We'll give the crew, they'll all leave the site apart from the minimum skeleton crew that's required, and we'll come back in late January and start doing those little tidy up bits of work. And that's me.
Thanks, Steve. And first, congratulations. I'm sure Len will endorse it. Just that State Highway 25 being 3 months earlier for the whole Coromandel will be huge. And also the work program in your report. It's good to have that to know what's happening in our region, especially over the Christmas holidays, because that's when everyone's on the road and they complain about roadworks and asking what's happening and how long they're going to be. There's a big one down our way with Artamori, right? Virtually even the new road that got done's getting redone again. So, no, any other discussions? Yes, Claire.
Yeah, I think it's about $7 million under budget. 3 months ahead of schedule and $7 million under budget. It's unheard of. I've just signed off on the briefing for the Prime Minister because, the sort of back pocket messages for the open day, because he'll get asked that question. We owned all of the site. The slip took away anything of any ecological value. We didn't have to get resource consent to do the construction. We had a bridge design and materials already for State Highway 2 in Tauranga, and we literally just lifted that design and said, put that design here and use the steel beams that we've already got, because that State Highway 2 project was at least a year away before they needed all of the beams. So they'd got ahead of the game. We benefited from the fact that was the case. So we were able to divert that. And McConnell Dowell, the joint venture were really open to doing contract negotiations while works were underway. So what we did is we negotiated the raw elements of the contract, and then the fine tuning happened while they were doing the site establishment. And again, that's pushing the boundaries a little bit in terms of our normal work practice, but so yeah, all of those things combined. And then when we said to them, we want you to work, double shifts and 20 hours a day, they kind of went, okay, righto, we'll get on with it. And in fact, there were some days where they literally worked 24 hours a day. And to be honest, we were lucky because we had a really good run of weather. There was a period where I was actually up there and they were craning. We're trying to put massive big round cages of rebar steel into these big pre-drilled holes to them. So they have a big round of rebar and then a little round of rebar that goes inside, and then they pour concrete into a pre-drilled hole. You can imagine these things are 30 meters long with a 200-ton crane, and the wind was blowing up the valley, and they were swaying like this. So they just have to shut the site down. And we kind of all went, oh God, and the forecast was for it to continue for 10 days. And, okay, well, there goes Christmas. And the next day, the wind stopped. So, we just got lucky a few times. But you know, you only benefit from luck if you're prepared to take advantage of it. And they were really, really well organised. So yeah, can't say enough about the way the contractor managed the contract actually.
Adrian?
Yeah, it's really good to have some luck. That's definitely the key. Just want a question around Wahara and the work that's been done there, because obviously years ago there were 2 pedestrian crossings at each end of the village. So now you're just going to have one across the middle, or a refuge. It won't be a formal pedestrian crossing. It'll just be a refuge in the middle. Just a concern around the camber of the road and the state, you know, with stormwater on the reserve side of the village, and trucks, because of the camber, trucks are actually pulling up on the curbing and parking their passenger side wheels up on the grass, and it's just really dirty. And yeah, you know, like there needs to be something done there, because obviously if the camber of the road's like that, the truckie's getting out and he's got, you know, it's not an easy step out of the truck because they've got to climb uphill to get in. And yeah, I just challenged by the look of the village because of that, you know, because they're driving on the grass to get more even, and the dirt and the stormwater. Yeah, but there's anything to be done there at some stage. I don't know. Just a question. But my real burning question is the transport choices. When will we know? When will we know as councils where we sit with that funding? Do you have any?
You will know when I know. I promise you, I will email you the moment I know, and I don't know when I will know.
Can't get better than
Clear
that.
as mud. No,
Sorry.
thank you. I think there's a lot of us are
Yeah.
hanging on that fund though, because we've got some really good projects in train around safety, and it's quite frustrating, to have parked them. But anyway, it is what it is.
Look, all I can say is from our point of view, we have put in the briefings to the minister. We've given him a really clear view of what those programs look like and the rationale behind those programs, and where we are able to, we've expressed the level of support commitment from local government to those. You could do that also, and that would be helpful. But in terms of the when, I wish I could tell you. I don't know.
Len, or did you want to say something quickly, Kev?
No, sorry, just so I'm clear, you are comfortable with us individually as councils approaching the minister for our specific project? That's what you're saying. That's what I will do, but I just don't want to step out of lane if that's already in train.
It's already in train insofar as we have outlined the program of works. So Transport Choices is a huge program of works. The minister has asked to take a look at it in light of their priorities versus the previous government's priorities. It'd be no surprise to anybody. They need to find funding for things. This is in the mix of where do we find funding for things. We've given a very clear view of what the rationale for those investments are, what we think the payback for those investments is, in terms of, you know, whatever the benefits are, safety, congestion, I mean, they range. So we've done that at a program level, 100%. I guess it's up to you if and when you get the opportunity to express your priorities to the minister, what it is you express in that context. So I don't want to be careful. I don't want to advocate for you to do anything specific. I'm just saying, look, you know, if you have got things that you really want to prioritize when you do get that opportunity, have that conversation. That's entirely appropriate that as elected members you do that.
I would do that anyway, but I just want to. So I'm trying to read between the lines on your comment. Would it be in our interests or not? I'm sorry. Maybe I'll talk to you offline, David.
Len.
So I'm just trying to find a sign that I'm sending to Dave, which I would like to, if it's possible, to just bring up. This is really relevant. And while that's going through, I would just want to add my thanks and congratulations to David and the team. But one of the things that's really struck from this whole 25A thing is the level of comms that have gone out from Waka Kotahi, which has been absolutely extraordinary. And the amount of goodwill that that has generated and the noise that it's quietened down throughout the project has been really, really good to see. So the sign that I've sent to Dave, I don't know if it's come up, is a thank you billboard that is going up. There it is there. Oh, cool. So that's going up at the beginning of the road. It might be up now. If not, it'll be up within the next few days. Just to thank you to the team for all the. So yeah, really, really good feeling amongst the community, and can't say enough of the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Len. Okay, if there's no other discussion, I'd just like to say thank you on behalf of the Transport Committee, David, your input and Angus's input this year. I mean, it's been a huge year with the weather events and everything else that's gone on, and also to the committee members, their input for the staff, and then lastly, the staff. You've done a fantastic job on this report that's going to come out for submission next year for us to deliberate, or not deliberate on, to hear the hearings on the 26th and 27th of March. So thank you very much, and we'll finish with a karakia, but just before that, I'd just like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and spend time with your family, your loved ones, because that's so important that you have that quality time. So Phil, I'll ask you. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Report. I'm getting ahead of myself. So yeah. So we better do that for David. Last of all, so we've got a resolution that that the report Waka Kotahi shall be moved and received, and Len's wants to do that, is to move that. And
No,
we have
Adrian moved. I'll second it.
and a seconder. Yep.
Oh, Adrian moved.
Oh, Adrian. Yep. Adrian moved and Len seconded. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. Okay, Phil, we'll let you finish with the cut here.
Karakia tātai. Unahia, unahia, unahia mai te uru tapanui. Ia wātia, ia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te hinenaro, I te ara takatu. Kua e rā rongo, e whakaere ake ki runga, kia tina, umie, huie, tātai.
Okay, Merry Christmas everyone, and lunch is served next door.
Thank you.
Thank you.